Adrian Vale shook Ronan's hand like he was welcoming a prodigal son, never noticing Elena listening from 12 feet away behind a pane of smoked glass. The donor suite occupied the top floor of a private hotel on Michigan Avenue, all dark walnut, cream carpet, and expensive whiskey glowing beneath brass lamps. Outside, Chicago glittered beneath the windows. Inside, ice clicked against crystal, and a jazz record played softly enough to hide whispered deals. Ronan wore the expression Elena had learned meant he was lying beautifully. "Seamus says you've finally come to your senses," Vale said. "My mistake was letting anger turn into hesitation." Across the room, Seamus smiled into his drink. Through the tiny receiver beneath Ronan's collar, Elena heard every word from an adjoining service lounge. She had entered separately through the catering corridor with Claire's temporary press credentials, then positioned herself behind the privacy glass, where hotel staff monitored the room. "And Vitale?" Vale asked. Ronan lifted his whiskey without drinking. "Handled." Elena's jaw tightened despite knowing the line was theirs. Seamus laughed softly. "That sounds more like my nephew." Ronan leaned back. "If I'm coming back, I want to understand what Patrick nearly destroyed." The room changed. Barely. But Elena saw Vale's thumb stop against his glass. Seamus's smile vanished. Patrick was confused. Patrick was recording people. Ronan made the accusation sound casual. Wasn't he? Vale looked toward Seamus. Elena leaned closer to the glass. Ronan had invented that sentence 10 minutes earlier in the elevator. It was bait. Seamus answered too quickly. "Anything Patrick recorded is irrelevant." Ronan's fingers remained loose around his glass. "Then destroy it." Silence. Vale turned toward the windows. Seamus said, "It isn't here." Elena's pulse jumped against the wire running beneath her sleeve. Ronan took another calculated risk. "Then where?" Seamus gave him a long look. "You've been gone a few days and forgotten how this works?" "No. I remember exactly. Family keeps leverage." Ronan set down the whiskey. "So where are you keeping ours?" Vale stepped between them with a politician's smile. "There's no reason to turn tonight into an interrogation." Elena moved. She left the service room, crossed the catering hall, and entered through the main doors carrying a silver tray she had taken from an unattended service station. Seamus saw her first. His face hardened. Ronan did not turn immediately. "You said she was handled," Vale murmured. Ronan finally looked at Elena. "She is." Elena set the tray onto a sideboard as though she belonged there. "Mr. Vale, your driver asked me to tell you the Lakeshore Club called about tomorrow's private reservation." It was another lie. But Vale's eyes flicked automatically toward the inner pocket of his jacket. Seamus looked at him. Ronan saw both reactions. "Lakeshore Club?" he asked. Vale's composure returned. "Private membership." Elena smiled politely. "Very private. Especially the basement vault." Seamus stood. "Get her out." Ronan rose too, placing himself between Elena and the door without touching her. Interesting response. Vale's jaw tightened. "Enough." Elena lowered her voice. "Patrick made a recording, didn't he? Something neither of you could destroy because it protects someone else too." Seamus walked toward her. "You have no idea what you're talking about. Then you won't mind if we visit the club." He stopped. There it was. Ronan saw it too. Vale reached for his phone, but Ronan took it first and placed it face down on the table. No force. Just certainty. "Tomorrow night," Ronan said. "You're taking me to the Lakeshore Club." Vale stared at him. "And why would I do that?" Ronan looked at Elena, then back at the man whose campaign depended on Black Harbor. "Because if I'm really back in the family, you have nothing to hide from me." Seamus's expression darkened. Ronan stepped beside Elena. "And if you refuse, then you've just told us exactly where Patrick's recording is." The Lakeshore Club would only let Elena through its doors if Ronan Kearney claimed she belonged beside him. Valets moved beneath heated awnings while black sedans rolled across the private drive, their tires whispering over wet stone. Inside, amber lamps reflected from dark mahogany walls. A pianist played beneath a stained glass ceiling, and the air carried expensive bourbon, cedar smoke, and the faint salt of oysters from the dining room. Elena adjusted the cuff of her black evening dress. "Remind me why I have to pretend to like you." Ronan offered his arm. His tuxedo concealed every tattoo except a narrow black line at his wrist. "Because members can bring spouses or established partners into the private wing." Established. Try not to look horrified. Elena slipped her arm through his. "I'm imagining your funeral." The doorman checked Ronan's membership card, then looked at Elena. Ms. Vitale? Ronan answered before she could. She's with me. The words sounded simple. The hand Ronan placed lightly over hers made them convincing. They crossed the lobby beneath dozens of watching eyes. Elena leaned closer without moving her smile. 3 cameras ahead, 1 above the bar, 2 guards by the west corridor. You noticed? I'm capable of multitasking. You've mentioned. Ronan guided her toward the ballroom where Vale's donors were gathering. Seamus stood near the fireplace, watching them enter together. Elena felt Ronan's fingers tighten once over hers. He hates this, she whispered. Good. You're enjoying yourself. More than I should. Before Elena could answer, Adrian Vale approached with a campaign chairman and 2 club trustees. Ronan, I wasn't expecting company. Vale looked at Elena as if she were a stain on the carpet. Ronan moved closer to her. You told me to make my intentions clear. Politically, I'm being clear about several things tonight. Elena glanced at him. That line had not been rehearsed. Vale forced a smile. And what exactly is Ms. Vitale to you now? Weeks earlier, Ronan might have called her useful. A witness. A liability. Elena waited. His thumb brushed once across the back of her gloved hand. Someone whose place beside me isn't open for discussion. Silence lasted half a second too long. Then the chairman laughed politely, assuming romance where there was strategy. Elena's pulse behaved less professionally. Ronan led her onto the dance floor before anyone could ask another question. Was that necessary? She murmured. His hand settled carefully at her waist. Vale was testing us. You could have lied less convincingly. Could you? They turned beneath warm chandelier light. The piano blended with the muted clink of glassware. Elena could smell cedar on Ronan's jacket, familiar now instead of threatening. Your hand is too high, she said. For dancing. For pretending. You're the one counting. She looked up at him. You used to count the minutes before deciding whether to kill me. Ronan's expression changed. I remember. And now. Another turn carried them past Seamus. Ronan's gaze never left hers. Now I'm counting cameras. Elena almost smiled. Coward. Probably. At the edge of the floor, Ronan shifted them toward the restricted west corridor. Elena slipped a copied access card from her glove while his body blocked the camera's view. One swipe. Red. She tried again while Ronan bent close enough to make the movement look intimate to anyone watching. Green. The lock released. We're in, she whispered. They entered the private corridor without breaking stride. Thick carpet swallowed their footsteps. The temperature dropped, and the scent of polished wood gave way to cool stone and metal. At the far end, a brass elevator waited behind another security desk. Ronan handed the attendant his card. Basement vault. The man looked at Elena. Partners only. Ronan turned to her instead of answering for her. For the first time all night, the performance stopped. Your choice. Elena looked back toward the ballroom, then at the elevator doors opening behind him. She slipped her hand into his. Then stopped calling it pretending. Ronan stared at her for one silent beat before stepping into the elevator beside her. The safe held no recording. Only a typed list with Elena Vitale's name at the top. The basement elevator opened onto a corridor of pale limestone and brushed steel, so cold Elena could feel it through the thin soles of her shoes. Ventilation whispered behind the walls, carrying the dry smell of paper, metal, and expensive cigar smoke from somewhere deeper inside the club. Ronan released her hand only long enough to check the hallway. 3 cameras. 4. Elena said, nodding toward a black glass dome reflected in the polished floor. You missed the one behind us. I was distracted. By security? His eyes touched hers for half a second. No. Elena looked away first and crossed to the vault door. The brass plate beside it required a member card, a 6-digit code, and a fingerprint. Ronan swiped his card. The first light turned green. Code, he asked. Elena removed the small notebook she had taken from Vale's donor suite and opened it to the numbers she had copied while pretending to serve drinks. Vale checked his phone before entering the private wing. 6 digits. He typed 041729. Ronan entered them. Second light green. The fingerprint reader remained red. That part might be difficult, he said. Elena pulled a thin, transparent strip from her evening bag. Ronan stared at it. You lifted his print? From the whiskey glass you took away from him. Remind me never to leave you alone with my personal information. Too late. She pressed the preserved print against the scanner. Green. The lock released with a deep mechanical clunk. Inside, dozens of private boxes lined concrete walls beneath white fluorescent lights. The temperature dropped another 10 degrees. Ronan closed the door behind them while Elena searched the numbering system. Patrick's recording has to be somewhere Vale and Seamus both consider untouchable. Box 317, Ronan said. Why? Patrick's birthday. Seamus uses family dates when he thinks he's being clever. They found it halfway down the west wall. Ronan inserted the master key he had taken from the attendant's desk during their stage distraction upstairs. The box slid free. Elena carried it to the steel table. Ready? Ronan stood beside her. No good answer. She opened it. No recorder. No drive. No photographs. Just a cream envelope sealed with black wax. Elena broke it. A single sheet of heavy paper unfolded beneath the fluorescent light. Names. 12 of them. Beside each sat an address, a date, and a status column. 2 names were marked complete. 3 were marked pending. Elena's finger stopped at the first line. Elena Vitale. Ronan took the paper from her. His face did not change, but the edge of the sheet bent beneath his thumb. Beneath Elena's name was her safe house address. Her father's house. Her former office. Every place she had been since Ronan found her. The final column contained a time. Tonight. 12:15 a.m. Ronan checked his watch. 11:57. 18 minutes. Elena reached for the paper. We copy it and leave. Ronan did not move. His attention had dropped to the second name. Ronan Kearney. Scheduled 20 minutes after hers. Elena looked up at him. They weren't planning to separate us. No, his voice was quiet. They were planning to erase both of us. Somewhere outside the vault, an electronic chime sounded. Then another. The green access light beside the door turned red. Elena crossed to it and tried the handle. Locked. A speaker crackled overhead. Seamus's voice filled the vault. I wondered how long it would take her to lead you here. Ronan stepped in front of Elena as footsteps approached outside. You planned this, he called. I planned for the possibility that my nephew would forget what side he was born on. Elena glanced at the list again. 12 names. 2 already gone. 10 remaining. Her eyes returned to the time beside her own. 12:15. Ronan. I know. He removed his tuxedo jacket, wrapped it around his fist, and turned toward the emergency glass panel beside the vault door. Elena caught his arm. If you break that, the club locks down. It already has. The speaker crackled again. Seamus sounded almost amused. 12 minutes now, Ronan. Ronan looked at Elena, then at the name someone had scheduled for death because he had chosen not to kill her himself. He struck the emergency panel. Glass cracked across the frame. Then they just made their last mistake. The emergency glass shattered on Ronan's second strike, but the vault door stayed locked. An alarm began pulsing through the basement, deep and mechanical, while red lights replaced the fluorescent white above them. Elena grabbed the broken panel before Ronan could hit it again. Stop. The door is magnetic. Which means, kill the power. She ripped 2 wires free, crossed them against the exposed contact, and jumped back as sparks snapped blue against the steel frame. Somewhere behind the wall, a breaker slammed. The ventilation died. The vault lights vanished. For one breathless second, there was only darkness, the smell of hot wiring, and Seamus shouting through the dead speaker. Then the lock released with a heavy click. Ronan pulled the door open. Move. Elena slipped the death list beneath her dress belt and followed him into the corridor. Footsteps were already pounding toward them from the elevator. Ronan shoved open a maintenance door instead, and they ran through a narrow service passage lined with cold pipes. Steam hissed from a valve near Elena's shoulder. Their shoes struck bare concrete, fast and uneven, until they reached a stairwell leading to the underground garage. Ronan stopped before the final door and listened. Silence. He opened it. Declan Walsh stood beside a black SUV 20 feet away. Ronan. Relief crossed his face too quickly. I've been trying to reach you. Ronan did not lower his guard. How did you know where we were? Vale's security locked the building down. Word traveled. Walsh opened the rear door. We need to leave now. Elena stayed beside Ronan. Where are your men? Pulled back. Too much attention upstairs. Ronan looked toward the garage exit. The safe house. Walsh's answer came immediately. Still clean. Elena turned her head. Ronan did too. Walsh seemed to realize the mistake half a second late. Ronan's voice became quiet. I didn't ask whether it was clean. Walsh's hand moved toward his coat. Ronan crossed the distance before he could finish. He caught Walsh's wrist, drove it against the SUV door, and a handgun clattered onto the concrete. No shot, no blood, just the hard metallic echo rolling through the garage. Elena kicked the weapon beneath a parked sedan. Walsh twisted free and backed away. You don't understand. Then explain why you know the status of a location I never assigned you to watch. Because somebody had to keep you alive while you were letting her tear the family apart. Ronan stepped forward. You gave Seamus the address. Walsh looked at Elena. That was answer enough. Ronan's jaw locked. When? Tonight. Elena pulled out her phone and opened the encrypted safehouse cameras. The first feed showed the empty alley. The second showed the garage door closed. The third froze for 2 seconds, then returned with 3 dark figures already inside. Her thumb stopped on the screen. Ronan. He looked. One intruder crossed the kitchen where Elena had kissed him. Another opened the steel cabinet, holding Patrick's remaining records. A third disappeared toward the bedrooms. Walsh lowered his voice. Seamus only wanted the files. Elena looked up. There's nothing left there worth risking people for. Walsh's eyes flicked toward Ronan. He wasn't told that. Ronan grabbed Walsh by the front of his coat and pushed him against the SUV. Who else knows? Everyone who needs to. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Elena's phone vibrated. The safehouse feed changed again. One of the intruders carried 2 red fuel cans across the concrete floor and set them beside the kitchen. Ronan released Walsh instantly. Elena was already running toward the driver's side of the SUV. They're not searching it anymore. Ronan got in beside her. On the screen, another man began pouring a clear liquid in a line across the floor. Elena started the engine. Ronan looked once at Walsh standing beneath the garage lights, the man he had trusted to protect her. Then he turned toward the exit. He didn't betray the safe house, Elena said as the SUV surged forward. Ronan's eyes stayed on the road ahead. He betrayed us. The safe house was already burning when Elena and Ronan reached the warehouse. Orange light pulsed behind the blacked-out windows, and smoke rolled from beneath the steel garage door in thick gray ribbons. Ronan braked hard 50 feet away. Stay in the car. Elena was opening her door before he finished. We retired that line. Heat struck them halfway across the alley. The air smelled of gasoline, scorched wood, and melted plastic, while somewhere inside the building glass cracked with sharp, irregular pops. Ronan caught Elena's arm before she reached the side entrance. The records aren't worth this. Patrick's phone is still inside. I said they're not worth this. Elena looked at him. He was not looking at the building. He was looking at her. Neither are you, she said. So we go together. Ronan swore under his breath and pulled his shirt collar over his mouth. The side door opened into smoke. Emergency lights flickered red along the concrete floor, barely visible beneath the haze. Fire had reached the kitchen, consuming the table where they had first decoded Black Harbor. Elena saw the steel cabinet through the smoke. 30 seconds. Ronan stayed at her shoulder. They crossed low beneath the worst of the heat. Elena reached the cabinet and pulled it open. Empty. They took everything. Behind them, the side door slammed shut. Ronan turned. A burning support beam had fallen across the corridor, cutting off the exit. Flames climbed along the wall where gasoline had been poured, and the warehouse alarm began screaming overhead. Garage, Ronan said. They ran toward it. The main door controls were dead. Elena hit the manual release. Nothing. Ronan pulled at the chain mechanism until the metal groaned, but the door moved less than an inch. Smoke thickened around them. Elena coughed into her sleeve and looked toward the floor. The maintenance tunnel. Ronan turned. What tunnel? Original printing plant. I saw it on the renovation plans when you brought me here. She crossed toward the rear utility room. Ronan followed. Heat pressed against their backs as Elena kicked aside a metal shelving unit and exposed a square service hatch beneath the wall. The handle was hot. Ronan wrapped his tuxedo jacket around his hand and pulled. The hatch opened onto blackness and damp, cold air. Go. Elena crouched. Together. A section of ceiling crashed behind them, throwing sparks across the concrete. Ronan placed both hands on Elena's shoulders and pushed her toward the opening. Elena moved. She crawled into the tunnel. Ronan followed seconds later and dragged the hatch close behind them. Darkness swallowed the firelight. The tunnel was barely 4 feet high, lined with rough bricks slick with condensation. Water dripped somewhere ahead, and the air smelled of soil, rust, and old stone. Elena crawled 20 yards before Ronan stopped behind her. Wait. She turned. He was sitting against the tunnel wall, breathing harder than before. One sleeve was singed at the cuff, exposing black and gray tattooing beneath it. You hurt? She asked. No, that sounded convincing. Keep moving. Elena crawled back instead. You went into a burning building for a phone. I went in because you did. She stared at him in the darkness. That's worse. I know. Above them came a dull roar as something heavy collapsed inside the warehouse. Dust sifted from the tunnel ceiling. Ronan looked upward, then at Elena. That place was supposed to keep you safe. It did. Not anymore. Elena reached for his hand. His fingers closed around hers immediately. Then we find somewhere else. Ronan's voice dropped. Everyone who gets close to me becomes leverage. You're still trying to decide for me. I'm trying to understand why you're still here. Elena squeezed his hand once. Because when that building started burning, you didn't run toward the evidence. You ran toward me. Ronan went silent. They crawled another 100 feet until the tunnel opened behind an abandoned loading dock near the river. Cold night air hit Elena's face. She climbed out first, then turned and offered Ronan her hand. Behind them, flames rose above the warehouse roof, taking the safe house, Patrick's remaining records, Elena's clothes, and the first place where Ronan had stopped treating her like an enemy. Ronan stood beside her watching it disappear. We lost everything in there, he said. Elena looked at their hands, still joined. Not everything. Ronan followed her gaze and did not let go. Ronan's hands started shaking only after Elena stopped watching the fire. They had taken shelter beneath an abandoned riverfront loading canopy 2 blocks from the warehouse, where cold wind pushed smoke across the black water and rusted chains knocked softly against a steel post. Elena sat on an overturned crate, wrapping a clean strip torn from Ronan's undershirt around the burn on his forearm. Beneath the soot, black and gray tattoos disappeared under the bandage and continued across his wrist. Hold still. I am. You're shaking. Cold. Elena looked up. His coat was gone. His shirt was scorched at one cuff, and sweat still darkened the collar despite the 40-degree air. Liar. Ronan turned toward the river. Far behind them, sirens circled the burning safe house, their red lights flickering against low clouds. Elena tightened the knot. He did not react. Patrick called me 17 times, Ronan said. She stopped. We already know that. You don't know why I ignored him. A tugboat horn sounded somewhere beyond the bridge, low enough to vibrate through the metal beneath their feet. Ronan rested both hands on his knees. The night he died, he came to me asking for help. Not protection. Help. Elena waited. He said something was wrong inside the family. He wouldn't give me names because he thought I'd confront people before he had proof. Ronan gave a dry laugh with no humor in it. He knew me. Elena folded the unused cloth and set it beside her. What did you do? I accused him of being weak. Ronan's eyes stayed on the river. I told him he was embarrassing the family by questioning people who had protected us since we were children. He said loyalty wasn't supposed to mean blindness. His fingers curled against his knees. I told him if he walked out that door against my advice, he was on his own. Elena said nothing. The cold air smelled of river mud, smoke, and damp iron. He walked out, Ronan continued. Then he called. One beat. And called. Another. By the 10th call, I knew something was wrong. Elena's gaze sharpened. Ronan finally looked at her. I saw his name on the screen. I could have answered. But you didn't. No, his voice roughened around the word. I wanted him to come back and admit I was right. The silence between them stretched. Then the calls stopped. Elena looked toward the distant fire. And when you found my name tied to the financial leak, I didn't just believe you killed him. Ronan stood, paced 3 steps, then turned back. I needed you to have killed him. Elena's expression changed. He continued before she could speak. Because if you were responsible, then Patrick's death had a shape I could understand. An enemy. A mistake. Something I could punish. Ronan wiped soot from his palm onto his ruined shirt. If you weren't responsible, then I had to live with the fact that my brother asked me for help, and I let my pride send him into that night alone. Elena rose from the crate. So you hunted me? Yes. For 11 months. Yes. And now you keep trying to throw yourself in front of every danger meant for me. Ronan looked at her. Yes. Elena stepped closer. That doesn't bring Patrick back. I know. And getting yourself killed for me wouldn't fix it. His jaw tightened. I know. Do you? She took his uninjured hand and pressed it flat against the center of his chest. Because I'm getting tired of watching you turn guilt into a reason to disappear. Ronan looked down at her hand. You should hate me for what I almost did to you. Sometimes I do. His eyes lifted. Elena did not soften the answer. And sometimes I remember you running into a burning building because I was inside. Wind pushed a strand of hair across her face. Ronan reached up, then hesitated. Elena caught his wrist and guided his hand the rest of the way. His fingers brushed the hair back carefully. Those two things can exist at the same time, she said. Ronan's hand remained against her cheek for one quiet second. Then here's the truth I haven't said. Elena waited. His voice dropped. I'm not protecting you because of Patrick anymore. Ronan arranged Elena's escape before sunrise and told himself that letting her go was the first decent thing he had done for her. A black sedan waited beneath an abandoned rail bridge near the river, its engine idling in the cold while steam curled from a storm drain and the smell of wet concrete mixed with smoke still drifting from the ruined safe house. Claire had provided a driver who owed nothing to the Kearneys. The plan was simple: west to a private airfield, then out of Illinois under another name. Marco was already somewhere secure. Elena could disappear before Seamus or Black Harbor found her again. Ronan opened the passenger door. Your new phone is in the glove box. Cash, identification, everything you need is in the bag. Elena did not get in. And you? I stay. Doing what? Finishing this. The river moved black beneath the bridge behind him. A train thundered overhead, shaking rust from the beams. Elena studied his face beneath the yellow streetlight. Alone. That's safer. For whom? Ronan looked away. For you. Elena gave a quiet, humorless laugh. There it is again. Elena, you just admitted you're not protecting me because of Patrick, and 5 minutes later you're deciding my life without me. I'm giving you a way out. No, you're giving yourself permission to stay behind. Ronan's jaw tightened. Seamus knows where I sleep, who works for me, which properties I use. Walsh gave him access to everything. You stay beside me, you stay inside the target. Elena stepped closer. And if I leave, you live? The answer came too quickly. She saw what he had hidden inside it. While you do what? Ronan said nothing. Elena reached into the car, took the bag, and for 1 second he thought she had accepted. Then she zipped it open, removed the spare phone and identification, and handed the bag back to the driver. Take these. Ronan stared at her. What are you doing? Making sure you can't send me away again. She turned and walked toward the riverfront street. Elena. She kept going. Ronan caught up within seconds. The airfield is the other direction. I'm not going to the airfield. Yes, you are. She stopped beneath a street lamp and faced him. Then put me in the car. Ronan went still. Elena spread her arms slightly. You've kidnapped me before. You know how. He looked at her for a long moment. Wind pushed smoke between them. I won't do that. Exactly. Elena lowered her arms. Because I'm not your prisoner anymore. She took the new phone from her coat and opened the photograph she had taken of the death list before leaving the Lakeshore Club. 10 names were still active. We know Black Harbor is cleaning up anyone who can expose it. We also know Seamus thinks your weakness is me. He's right. Elena's gaze lifted. Ronan seemed to realize what he had said only after the words were already between them. She did not smile. Then we use it. No. You really need another word. Not when this one works. Elena stepped close enough to take his injured hand. The bandage she had tied around his forearm was gray with soot. Listen carefully. I had a car. I had money. I had a clean identity and a road out of Chicago. She placed his hand against her chest, over the steady beat beneath her coat. And I'm still here. Ronan's fingers curled slightly. That doesn't make this smart. I never claimed to be smart around you. Elena, you hunted me. I hated you. I had every reason to leave. She released his hand, walked back to the sedan, and shut the open passenger door herself. The driver glanced toward Ronan, waiting. Elena answered instead. Go. The sedan pulled away, taillights shrinking beneath the bridge until darkness swallowed them. Ronan watched the empty road, then turned to her. You just gave up your safest exit. Elena stepped beside him. No. I chose where I'm standing. This time, when Ronan started walking back toward Chicago, Elena went with him because nobody had forced her to. Elena knew they had become an us when Ronan handed her the only gun in the room and turned his back. Claire had moved them into an unused apartment above the bakery before dawn, a narrow second-floor space with faded brick walls, radiator pipes that knocked every few minutes, and windows overlooking an alley washed silver by early light. Fresh bread rose warm through the floorboards, mixing with the smell of rain still trapped in Ronan's coat. Elena stood at the kitchen table, studying the photograph she had taken of the Lakeshore death list, while Ronan stripped the scorched shirt from his shoulders and replaced the bandage on his arm. Black and gray tattoos covered his torso and disappeared beneath his waistband, but Elena barely noticed them now. Her attention stayed on the first unmarked name below theirs. Claire says this man works maintenance at Vale's campaign headquarters, she said. If he's on the list, he knows something. Or Black Harbor thinks he does. Ronan buttoned a clean shirt. Either way, he doesn't stay at home tonight. Elena circled an address. We move him before Seamus does. Ronan checked the magazine of the handgun Claire had left, set the safety, and placed it in front of Elena. You carry it. She looked at the weapon, then at him. You're giving me a gun after spending 11 months trying to kill me? I'm evolving. Slowly. Painfully. An hour later, they were inside a parking structure beneath Vale's campaign office, waiting beside a concrete stairwell while fluorescent lights buzzed overhead and tires hissed on wet ramps several levels above. Ronan had wanted Elena in the car. He had asked once. She had said no. He had nodded. That alone felt stranger than any kiss. The maintenance worker appeared at 6:12 a.m., carrying a lunch bag and searching for his keys. A black sedan entered the level behind him. Ronan saw it first. That's not Claire. Elena saw the rear plate covered with road grime. Two men stepped out. Ronan moved toward the worker. Elena moved toward the stairwell control panel. No argument. No instructions. They had planned both jobs before arriving. She pulled the fire alarm. Bells exploded through the garage, red strobes flashing against concrete pillars as security shutters began descending between sections. Ronan reached the worker before the two men did, turned him toward the emergency exit, and shoved the stairwell door open. Elena hit the manual barrier switch and dropped a steel gate between Ronan and the approaching sedan. The men stopped rather than expose themselves beneath the security cameras now turning toward the alarm. Move, Elena shouted. They ran up one level and exited into a service alley where Claire's vehicle waited. Within 90 seconds, the maintenance worker was gone. Ronan and Elena remained beneath the awning as rain began tapping against a row of metal dumpsters. You didn't come after me, Elena said. Ronan glanced over. You had the gate. You trusted me to handle it. Yes. The answer came so easily that she had nothing ready for it. Ronan stepped closer. I'm done treating you like something I have to keep behind me. Elena studied the man who once believed her death would avenge his brother. And what am I instead? A delivery truck passed at the mouth of the alley, spraying water across the curb. Ronan waited until its engine faded. The person I look for first when something goes wrong. Elena's expression changed. That sounds dangerously close to feelings. I've been informed I'm evolving. She almost laughed, but his face stayed serious. I don't know what this becomes, he said. I know what I was to you. I know what I nearly did. I'm not asking you to forget any of it. Elena stepped closer until only inches remained between them. Good. Because I won't. Ronan nodded. But I'm also done pretending that keeping you alive is just strategy. The rain grew harder beyond the awning. Elena reached for his hand. This time there was no emergency, no argument, no performance for cameras. Ronan threaded his fingers through hers. Then we stopped pretending, she said. He looked down at their joined hands. About what? Elena met his eyes. That there isn't in us. Ronan lifted her hand and held it against his chest, directly over the tattoo Patrick had drawn years ago. Then from now on, he said, we fight like one. By noon, Adrian Vale was no longer campaigning like a man trying to win Chicago. He was campaigning like a man who had already been promised the city. Giant screens covered the plaza outside his downtown headquarters, broadcasting his face above a crowd packed behind steel barricades, while speakers thumped campaign music into the cold air. Coffee carts steamed along the sidewalk, television crews shouted over one another, and every few seconds another burst of applause rolled between the glass towers. Elena watched from the roof of a parking garage across the street, binoculars pressed to her eyes. Ronan stood beside her in a dark overcoat, one tattooed hand visible where his glove ended at the wrist. Police Commissioner, Elena said. 2 judges. 3 city contractors. Ronan lowered his phone. And my uncle. Seamus appeared behind Vale on the stage, not close enough for cameras to identify him as part of the campaign, but close enough to speak into Vale's ear between handshakes. Elena passed Ronan the binoculars. He's not hiding anymore. He doesn't think he needs to. Vale stepped to the microphone. The crowd quieted. His voice boomed across the plaza. In 3 days, Chicago chooses whether it remains trapped by the failures of the past or finally takes control of its future. Elena looked at Ronan. 3 days. Tuesday. Patrick thought Vale winning would make Black Harbor permanent. Ronan's eyes stayed on the stage. Because the mayor controls appointments, access, contracts, influence. Seamus won't need to buy individual doors if Vale gives him the building. Elena folded her arms against the cold. Then we don't have 3 days. Ronan glanced at her. Why? Instead of answering, Elena started toward the stairwell. Ronan followed. You have that look. What look? The one you had before destroying my garage controls. That was excellent work. They crossed 2 levels and emerged onto the street behind Vale's headquarters. Delivery vans crowded the loading zone. Campaign volunteers carried boxes through a service entrance while security focused on the rally out front. Elena picked up 2 abandoned volunteer badges from a folding registration table and handed one to Ronan. He looked down at it. Daniel, 21, Northwestern student. Elena pinned hers on. Congratulations on your youth. I hate this plan already. You don't know the plan. Exactly. They moved with a group carrying campaign signs into the building. Inside, the noise from the rally became a muffled vibration through glass walls. The air smelled of printer toner, pizza boxes, and overheated electronics. Elena walked directly toward the volunteer command center. Ronan stayed beside her, no longer asking her to wait, only watching every door she did not. They reached a wall covered in election maps, staffing schedules, and countdown boards. Elena stopped. One board listed precinct teams. Another listed media appearances. A third carried a handwritten instruction in red marker. Final finance consolidation. Monday, 9 p.m. Ronan saw her reading it. What does that mean? Campaign money usually doesn't move like Black Harbor money. She stepped closer. But Patrick said Vale's operation was fed through consulting companies. If they're consolidating before Election Day, Seamus may be moving the network's money into position before Vale wins. A campaign manager suddenly appeared behind them. Who are you? Elena turned with a clipboard she had lifted from the table. Volunteer audit. Donor compliance sent us downstairs. The man looked at Ronan's badge, then at Ronan. You're Daniel? Ronan stared at him. Elena answered, he's very mature for 21. The manager frowned. Ronan took Elena's elbow and guided her toward the exit before the lie collapsed completely. They made it through the service door just as someone shouted behind them. Outside, Ronan started laughing. Elena stopped dead. Are you laughing at me? Very mature for 21? It worked. For 6 seconds. 6 useful seconds. She pulled the red marker schedule she had photographed on her phone. Ronan's laughter disappeared. Monday at 9. Tomorrow night, Elena said. If we wait until Election Day, Vale already has the machine behind him. Ronan looked toward the rally where cheers exploded again as Vale promised to take back City Hall. Then we hit Black Harbor before the consolidation. Elena met his eyes. Not the people. The money. Ronan understood. For the first time, his expression carried something colder than revenge and more dangerous than anger. Purpose. You can do that. Elena slipped the phone into her coat. I can make every account they depend on stop moving. For how long? She looked back at the countdown board visible through the glass doors. Long enough to force whoever controls Black Harbor to come out and save it. The rally erupted once more. Ronan stepped beside her, shoulder touching hers. And if they don't? Elena watched Vale raise both hands beneath a banner reading 3 days, TO change Chicago. Then in 72 hours, they owned the mayor's office. At 8:57 Monday night, Elena placed her finger over the command that could freeze Black Harbor's money and looked at Ronan instead of the screen. They were inside a temporary office above Claire's Bakery, surrounded by 3 laptops, paper ledgers, and a wall clock whose second hand sounded too loud in the narrow room. Warm bread and espresso drifted through the floorboards, but the windows leaked enough November cold to make Elena's fingertips stiff against the keyboard. Ronan stood beside her in shirt sleeves, his jacket hanging over a chair, black and gray tattoos visible from wrist to elbow. Once I start this, Elena said, they'll know someone understands the structure. Then they'll come for you. They already are. That wasn't what I meant. Elena looked up. Ronan's eyes stayed on her, not the accounts. Weeks ago, that look would have measured whether she was lying. Now it measured exits, distance, risk, everything between her and danger. You can still stop me, she said. No, that sounded suspiciously healthy. Don't get used to it. She almost smiled, then turned back to the screen. Marco's old ledgers had given her the shell companies. Patrick's files had shown the political routes. Claire's records identified the consultants. Elena did not need to steal money or break into a bank. She only needed to make the transactions impossible to ignore. At exactly 9 o'clock, when Vale's campaign began its final finance consolidation, Elena triggered a prepared chain of compliance alerts using documented discrepancies, duplicate authorizations, and conflicting ownership records. One institution flagged a transfer for review. Then another. A third froze outgoing funds pending verification. On the monitor, green transaction lines began turning amber. First account stopped, Elena said. Ronan leaned over her shoulder. How many? 31 active. 903. 4 accounts frozen. 906. 11. Phones began vibrating across the table as automated notifications hit numbers connected to the shell companies. Ronan's burner rang. Seamus. He let it ring. Elena glanced at him. Aren't you curious? Not enough to interrupt you. At 9:11, 23 accounts had stopped moving. The room filled with the soft fan noise of overheating laptops and the rapid click of Elena's keys. Then Vale's campaign consolidation failed. A red banner appeared across the central screen. Payment network review. Authorization required. Elena sat back. There. Ronan's phone rang again. This time Adrian Vale's name appeared. They're nervous, he said. Not yet. Elena opened the activity log. Nervous people call accountants. Powerful people call whoever can fix the system. They waited. 1 minute. 2. The bakery refrigerator hummed below them. A delivery truck groaned through the alley. At 9:16, an administrator login appeared on one of the accounts. Elena straightened. Someone's trying to override the holds. Ronan moved closer. Can they? Not remotely. Too many conflicting flags. The bank requires in-person executive verification on the master accounts. She checked the authorization window. They have until midnight before the review expands to linked entities. Ronan understood immediately. So whoever controls Black Harbor has to show himself, or lose access to most of the network before Election Day. His phone buzzed with a text. This time Ronan read it aloud. Family meeting. 10 o'clock. Mandatory. Elena looked at him. Seamus. My father. A second message arrived from an unknown number. Bring Elena Vitale, or don't come back. Ronan's expression hardened. Elena shut the laptop. They're blaming me. They're afraid of you. Difference. Ronan took his jacket from the chair, but did not put it on. Blame means they think you're the problem. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Fear means they know you're the one changing the rules. Elena looked toward the frozen accounts. If you walk into that meeting with me, they may turn on you. Ronan picked up her coat and held it open for her. They already chose their side. And yours? His eyes met hers. I chose mine when I stopped seeing you as someone I had to destroy. Elena slipped into the coat. Ronan's hand rested briefly at her shoulder before falling away. At 9:19, the 27th Black Harbor account froze. By 9:20, Ronan and Elena were already heading for the door together, while somewhere in Chicago the people who had spent months manipulating Ronan into hunting her were being forced to react to her for the first time.